The Stand Your Ground proposal, a protective shield or Pandora's box. So, Trinidad and Tobago is shaking things up. There's a new law on the table, a Stand Your Ground law. You might have heard of it. The new government, led by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, is really pushing for this. They just won the elections back in late April 2025 and boom, this is high on their to-do list. The Attorney General John Jeremy even called it a cabinet priority. They're not messing around, they want this law passed by the middle of this year, 2025. It's a big move, a really big move, and it's got everyone talking, wondering what it means for the Twin Islands. What does Stand Your Ground actually mean for the average person in T&T? Picture this, you're in your home or maybe your shop and someone breaks in. Scary, right? Well, this law says you don't have to try and run away first. You can use force, yes, even deadly force, to protect yourself if you feel your life is in danger. The main idea is to give homeowners and business people more power, more legal backing, when they're faced with intruders who are there to cause harm. It's a fundamental shift from how self-defense has been understood legally in the country up until now, a real game changer. Now, why the sudden urgency for such a dramatic law? Well, it's no secret that Trinidad and Tobago has been wrestling with some serious crime. We're talking about over 500 killings a year, on average. That's a number that makes anyone feel uneasy, and understandably so. The government sees this new law as a way to fight back, to empower citizens. They believe that law-abiding folks need better legal tools to defend themselves, their families, and their property, especially from the terrifying threat of home invasions. It's being sold as giving power back to the people, a direct response to public fear. And it seems this is just the beginning. The government isn't stopping at just one law. The Ministry of Homeland Security is apparently cooking up even more legal measures for self-defense. There's even talk of a special group to study home invasions and draft new laws to support victims. On top of that, the plan is to issue more gun permits to citizens who play by the rules. The cabinet is also setting up special committees to look into all this and recommend policies for better citizen protection. It's a full-court press on self-defense, a clear signal of a new direction. More harm than good, the deep-seated fears on the ground. Okay, hold on a second. While some might be cheering, not everyone is convinced this Stand Your Ground law is a brilliant idea. Let's be real. Imagine a society where more people feel they have a license to use lethal force. Critics are sounding the alarm, and loudly. They're seriously worried that instead of making T&T safer, this law could actually fuel the existing fire of violence. Think about it. More guns, more perceived permission to use them, that could easily lead to more tragic mistakes and misuse. It's a legitimate fear that this could create more problems than it solves. What about the ripple effects? If people think they can shoot first and ask questions later, how does that change everyday life? The Movement for Social Justice, MSJ Party, is one of the loudest voices expressing these concerns. They paint a grim picture, a possible rise in unnecessary killings. Simple arguments, misunderstandings, or minor disputes could escalate into deadly shootouts because the option of lethal force is suddenly more accessible and legally protected. We're talking about real lives, real communities. This isn't some action movie, the stakes are incredibly high and caution is definitely warranted. Then there's the whole legal quagmire. Who decides if the force used was reasonable? Was it proportional to the threat? This could turn into a massive headache for the courts. There's a genuine concern that some individuals might take the law into their own hands, acting as judge, jury, and executioner, and then face few, if any, real consequences. Imagine the courtroom battles trying to figure out after someone is already dead if they truly posed a lethal threat, or if someone just panicked or lost their temper. This kind of ambiguity can be a breeding ground for injustice and miscarriages of justice. And what about accountability? That's a big word, and a big worry here. If these Stand Your Ground laws aren't super clear and very carefully defined, how do we make sure people are held responsible for their actions? The fear is that some individuals might feel empowered, even emboldened, to act violently, maybe even recklessly, thinking the law will automatically have their back. This could create a dangerous culture where people feel they can get away with anything, blurring the lines between genuine self-defense and outright aggression. That's not a path to a safer society, is it? Are we importing a solution or a problem? So the government of Trinidad and Tobago is looking at Florida's Stand Your Ground law as a blueprint. Florida. Now, no offense to Florida, but is it really the shining example of progressive, effective lawmaking we should be copying? David Abdullah, the MSJ leader, doesn't seem to think so. He even called it adopting a backward legal framework. He and many others point to the United States where these laws are quite common, and note that it hasn't exactly turned the US into a peaceful utopia. In fact, some argue these laws are linked to and maybe even help create a more violent culture overall. The big question, the one everyone should be asking is, do these laws actually work? Do they reduce crime? Do they make communities safer? Well, if you look at the evidence, let's just say it's complicated and very controversial. Many critics and independent researchers will tell you there's no solid, undeniable proof that stand-your-ground laws cause crime rates to drop significantly. In many places where these laws are active, crime rates haven't really changed much. Or worse, some types of violent incidents have actually gone up. That throws some serious cold water on the idea that this is a magic bullet. It's not like there are tons of success stories we can point to as clear proof these laws are amazing. The research notes we've seen don't list any countries where stand-your-ground laws magically solved all their crime problems or made everyone feel super safe. The general feeling is that the promised benefits of these laws often just don't show up in reality. The idea that these laws are a proven, effective tool for fighting crime, that's not really backed up by strong, clear evidence from other places, so we really need to look before we leap, you know? The worry then is that Trinidad and Tobago might just be importing the same problems and social issues that other countries have experienced. If these laws haven't really curbed violence, or have possibly even made things worse in places like the US, why would we expect a different result in TNT? The Trinidad Guardian newspaper made a great point. We desperately need proper research. We need to dig into the actual statistics on violent crime from places where these laws already exist before we just copy and paste them here. We need to know if they're truly effective and if they're a good fit for our islands. Opposition experts and the people's voice. The main opposition party in Trinidad and Tobago, the People's National Movement, PNM, is definitely not on board with this stand-your-ground plan. Former Prime Minister Keith Rowley has come out swinging, calling the proposed law reckless. The PNM is asking some pretty tough but fair questions. They want to know when exactly is using deadly force justified. And they're really concerned that this kind of law could be easily misused by people who aren't just defending themselves, but maybe looking to settle old scores or escalate conflicts. These aren't small worries, they're pretty significant. David Abdullah from the MSJ is still sounding the alarm too. He's worried that this law won't fight violence but will just make our existing culture of violence even stronger, maybe even seem legitimate. And he's not just questioning the law itself, he's also asking if the government really has a strong mandate to push this through so quickly. He pointed out that the ruling UNC party won the election with votes from about 30% of all eligible voters, because a lot of people just didn't vote. Turnout was only 54%. He believes there needs to be a lot more public discussion and a proper, thorough debate in Parliament. It's not just the politicians who are raising red flags. Legal experts and social commentators are also expressing serious doubts. One of the main fears you hear from them is that these laws might encourage people to reach for deadly force way too quickly in tense situations. Instead of trying to calm things down or find a non-violent way out, the first instinct could become to grab a weapon. This change in mindset could turn what might have been a minor argument or a misunderstanding into a deadly tragedy. That's the exact opposite of what everyone wants for public safety. So, here's the bottom line. Is this stand-your-ground law really the right move for Trinidad and Tobago at this moment? The government, under Prime Minister Persad Bissessar, made it a big election promise, and they clearly want to deliver, but making such a huge controversial change to the law shouldn't be a rush job. When you consider all the potential downsides, the risk of more violence, the messy legal problems, the serious concerns about accountability, and the strong criticisms from opposition parties and experts, maybe it's time to slow down. Perhaps a more careful, evidence-based approach is what's truly needed. Our nation's safety deserves that much.